Hello, hello. This is Christina Barton. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barton. Today, we're going to be talking about some news that Star Wars has a new director. Their first, female, woman of color, etc., blah, blah, blah. And they're going to do more focus on Rey, which I think is, well, I guess it is what it is. But how they're framing the story is like, oh, we can finally it's about time we have a focus on females, as if they haven't been doing that. So I think this and other comments that the directors made in the past and their decision to go this route really highlights a huge issue with not just Disney, not just Star Wars, but so that is so determined to break the glass ceiling that they just treat everyone like we're stupid and have no sort of history. So we'll get into that. Also, I want to talk a little bit more about this Claudine Gay situation. She was a Harvard president who resigned in disgrace with the shortest tenure ever. And people are, we touched yesterday about how people were saying this is racial, etc., blah, blah, blah. And it's just kind of embarrassing to this point. Some of the commentary that's surrounding this whole issue. Also, immigration, we have record-breaking numbers in December as far as border crossings and stuff, but Thomas Massey and another Republican has come together for an interesting sort of, not solution, but something that we need to perhaps do. Well, we should do. It will be a change in our Constitution, and I don't know how many people will get on board with that, but at this point, I think it's really necessary. And if they try to really present this to the world, and we would see how the different states would, respond. And I suppose that would be really telling, whether they accepted this or didn't accept this. So anyway, before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost a stream around my website, all that stuff, so you guys can support. I appreciate it. If you're watching on Facebook, you guys can send stars. If you're watching on YouTube, you guys can send super chats. You guys can also check out different merch that we have available at blacktnews.com. You guys can also check out, if you go to that merchandise page, you can see a banner that'll take you over to my book website, where you can see all sorts of things that I write, so you guys can read up on the stuff and decide if that's something you want to get for yourself or for your kids. Or I write for, I guess for middle grade up. I do have like children's books, but the illustrations aren't done yet. So looking forward to that. Hopefully this year, maybe we'll see. We'll see. I'll let you know. When that drops. Got some nice stories about a dinosaur. I really, really, my sister's working on the art for that. So hopefully this year. Anyway, go check out my stuff. You guys can follow me on Amazon if you want to just kind of cut the middleman with the website and go right to Amazon and pick up some of my stuff, including my book, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. I have 17 books, 2 are nonfiction. This is one of my nonfiction books. The rest are fiction. So go ahead and check that out. So I do have a meme that I wanted to show you guys. This is from the Right to Bear memes. Now, sometimes Right to Bear memes, their memes are a little too edgy. But sometimes, man, their memes are so funny. And I've shared many of their memes before. This one, this one was pretty clever. I thought, I guess you gotta have to be a bit of not a computer nerd, but know a little bit about computers here to understand this. But it says, The 3 Keys to Success by Claudine Gay, who's the Harvard president. And the 3 keys are Control Alt Delete. Control V. So Control V is the C for copy and the V does the paste. I mean, it's just a control V is the copy and controls. Is one just control C is copy and the V does the paste? Is that how it is? Yes. But I thought it was pretty good meme there. Pretty good meme there. So the commentary, as I said, is pretty insane involving this. So she plagiarized people. End of story. Harvard president. They would oust other people, students. There are other people who've been ousted from positions of power for doing similar things who were white. So it's not just a black thing. It's not just a black thing of them going after black people. She did a bad thing. She did a bad thing. Not just a couple of quotes. It happened multiple times, multiple allegations of it. Whole paragraphs. There's no getting around that she did a bad thing, that she should be relieved of her position. Yet there's so many people. I think I said Nicole Hannah Jones name wrong the other day, but Nicole Hannah Jones, Ibrahim X Kendi, Cornel West, Lamont Hill, I think is his name. We read his stuff yesterday. So many people saying so many crazy things about the situation. Mark Lamont Hill, who's like, we need the next president to be black, and they're so focused on race, and they say that people came after her because she's black, and then the attacks against her are rooted in racism. Her resignation letter alluded that she was, people were attacking her because of racism. She didn't really take accountability for her bad behavior, and to my knowledge, her resignation letter still assumed that she had a job that she was going back to, just wouldn't be the president, so she'd still be among the staff. If you're gonna keep her or fight so hard to keep her, knowing that she's guilty as sin on the thing that brought so much shame to her and her position and the school, beyond like the anti-Semitic stuff of her answers on Congress, her response after the October 7th massacre to when she responded to the groups that wrote that letter, beyond all that, because they got her dead to rights on the plagiarism stuff. If you're going to rise to power and then make questionable decisions, tick off a lot of powerful people, you better have some pristine stuff, man. But they got her. And instead of being like, she's brought shame upon her position, they're like, this is something against all black women. I think Al Sharpton said something like that. I'm like, no, this has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me. She made her own bed. And she has to lie in it, period. And instead of like reworking what certain words mean, like plagiarism, she just did it and get over it. And they're only further proving that diversity, equity, inclusion has rotted people's brains. Because if you treated her like a fair individual, if you treated everyone like races were equal, etc., blah, 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 you would just say, you know what? She can't remain the president after this. You can't properly discipline students who would lift entire paragraphs of people's work and not give any sort of indication that someone else wrote it. You couldn't discipline them properly knowing that she was the president of Harvard. You couldn't. So people are making different collages of the bad takes and stuff. Mark here I showed this yesterday. He was like, the next president of Harvard University must be a black woman. And so people retweeted him and had a picture of Condoleezza Rice. But I guess other people said Candace Owens. So he's like, this is the problem. Y'all really think black people are interchangeable? No, they're just you're proving what's wrong with your philosophy. If all that matters is that someone is black, then why does it matter that they're Candace Owens? And if what matters is their merit, why does it matter if they're black? You can find someone else who is black, who has the credentials that would be great to be the president of Harvard. Sure, absolutely. But the truth is that if you don't toe a certain line of ideology, y'all won't like them no matter if they're black or not. The big lie about all this like focus on race is because people on the left will act like race is so important, like it's some kind of moral factor in life. But if you are a black person or Hispanic person or whoever, and you don't have the right sort of philosophy, they will just undermine your all of your value that your race is supposed to bring. So in reality, they know that race isn't really as important as they pretend that it is. What's important is their ideology, their philosophies, etc. And they just expect certain groups of people to be lockstep with all that. Here's some this isn't someone saying this is an attack on diversity. Let's watch some.
The thing that really disturbs me is the unrelenting campaign from the right and from some conservative activists to slander, discredit, and ultimately, I guess, somebody used the phrase, we've claimed a scalp, I think, on social media, to essentially unseat Gay and other presidents as well, when they don't like, not just the handling of the horrific attacks on Israel on October 7th, the way that was handled on campus, but really anything else that they don't like about not just these presidents, but actually what they would call wokeism on campus. So this is really an attack on academic freedom. It's an attack on people who are pluralists and believe that you should bring people from all over the world together of diverse backgrounds, and that you actually have more scholarly rigor and more value can be brought by having people from different backgrounds. This is an attack on diversity. This is an attack on multiculturalism and on many of the values that a lot of us hold dear. And in fact, anybody really who is around my age in their 30s who went to any major public university or private university in this country, these are values that are very important. And I think that's why these presidents are under attack. That's why Claudine Gay was under attack. The fact that she's a Black woman and the first person who is a Black American to lead Harvard only added to their thirst to dethrone her. And, those attacks, I don't have to say that they're racist, because you can hear and see the racism in the attacks. And people like Vivek Ramaswamy say, okay, this is a problem about diversity in hiring. I mean, this is racism as well. So there's a lot of different layers here, but I don't want to miss the attacks on academic freedom. And I think it's much easier to target women or women of color, but ultimately it's not going to stop there. And I really hope that we can stand up for academic freedom, no matter who the target is of these campaigns.
Yeah, right. If there was a conservative being targeted, for some, let's say it's a parallel universe opened up, and just at Harvard, and all of a sudden there was a president there who is conservative. And they got busted for plagiarism or whatever. Do you think that these people on MSNBC would be standing up saying this is about academic freedom? No. No. I got a comment here which is true. They call you an Uncle Tom because the left are racist. Yeah, they you don't say the right thing, poof, you're not on their side. You're just a traitor. So they're proving the point of the right. The right is saying so much of this is focused on race. So they get her on something dead. They have her dead to rights and they make it about race. Their argument was this person, well, they didn't like her responses to all sorts of different things, but there is a concern about diversity, equity, inclusion, and a suspicion that she is there because she's there. She's a Black woman, etc. She didn't have the credentials to really be the president of Harvard. Compared to other stuff that people will do. So there's a concern there that she's a diversity hire. And so she gets busted on not really making her own way because she's plagiarized a crap ton of stuff. And instead of being like, you know what, we got to just swallow our pride. We just got to let her fall. We just got to let her take her own bullet. They're still out here saying all this racial specific stuff because they can't let it go. But again, they're just proving the right on this, that is their focus. That is what they are concerned about, obsessed with. Let me I didn't mean to get rid of the screen before I showed you guys this particular tweet. So the Associated Press talked about she mentioned that someone said that there was a scout. That was Chris Rufo, who has been going to war with a lot of these academic institutions. Now he's not a fan of them because he doesn't like their policies and how obsessed they are with wokeism, I guess you could say. So he's waged in a very effective war. He's very big on pushing homeschooling and funding systems, funding students rather than systems. So he sees results. Obviously, this is a really good result that from his perspective anyway. And I read some of his quotes the other day. But he did mention that they did get their scalp. So the AP, there's all kinds of really woke takes in the media about this, but they mentioned his scalp tweet and they decided to associate it with something related to white colonists who sought to eradicate the Native Americans. And so So let me read that. Chris Rufo, a conservative activist who helped orchestrate the effort, celebrated her departure as a win for his campaign against the elite institutions of higher education. On X, formerly Twitter, he wrote, "Scalped as if gay was a trophy of violence, invoking a gruesome practice taken up by white colonists who sought to eradicate Native Americans." Now, what's wrong with this sentence? Because I guess people must have pointed out that there was something wrong with this sentence because they did a stealth edit of this article. They did a stealth edit and also used by some tribes against their enemies. Oh, what? Native Americans scalp people? It's not just a tool of white supremacy? Oh my gosh. I suppose that's news to whoever wrote the article at the AP and had to be eventually corrected, I'm sure, by people who complain. The desperation, just take the bullet. This is not something indicative of the war on Black women, on the war on academia. I mean, he is waging a war against academia, but certain things about academia that he feel needs to die, and he's not wrong. But part of that is the diversity, equity, inclusion, and the insistence upon defending her and condemning the enemies who wanted her gone or helped to oust her, and focusing on the race. You're just proving their point. Just you say, you know what, in all fairness. And there were some people who, someone was like, oh, how about we do this across the board then? And people are like, we accept your terms. Absolutely. You should get rid of presidents at colleges if they airlifted like entire paragraphs from people and didn't give them any sort of credit. Absolutely. Anyway, let's move on to the Disney thing. So there was some news about Star Wars the other day that was pretty funny. So they're going to do more Star Wars. And of course, why would they not make more Star Wars? But interestingly enough, they're going to do some more about Rey. There's people out there who like the story. I'm not one of them. I'm not one of them. They very clearly seem to not have good direction. To me, watching the new franchise with Star Wars, it was clearly like they're making it up as they go along. And it felt like that. And you know, stories, sometimes writers are making it up as they go along. They don't have like a full Bible planned out to the T of everything that's gonna happen. George Lucas, you know, there were details he, you know, didn't know the whole time, I suppose, with his stuff originally. But it really felt like that watching Rey's story, from like, oh, is she like has some kind of secret background, or like she knew so much in the first film that to me it kind of seemed like maybe she had trained and forgot or something, and they were messing around with the idea of her maybe being Kenobi or something, and then they were like, oh, she's a nobody, and then like last second they were like, oh, she's a Palpatine. And then and Daisy Ridley even said like within the last film they were still playing with her identity being something else. So yes, they were building the plane as it was flying. There's other things that people aren't too fond of with the series. They feel like she's too powerful, too much of a Mary Sue. Didn't like what they did with the original cast. etc and people feel within like Star Wars that they're trying to do too much girl boss stuff. Now there's characters that in Star Wars that people have always loved who are female. People liked Princess Leia, people like Padme, people like Ahsoka, though I guess it's mixed on the show that came out on Disney Plus. I didn't see it, but and I actually didn't really see the Clone Wars stuff that just hurt. I saw the film, but that was not the film with her, like the no, I didn't see the film. I saw the TV show that they had before the last film. So there's that content I didn't see, but people really like that character. So there's characters that people like in Star Wars who are female, and there's certainly characters they don't like who are male. So if you write a good character, people will like it. But if you don't like a film and that's starring a lead that's female, nowadays people want to just point the finger and say it's because you're sexist. So if you don't like the new Star Wars, people point to you and say, oh, it's because you're sexist because Rey, you know, was the lead on that. So what's interesting is that the director for the new Star Wars film says it's about time we've had a female filmmaker come forward to shape the galaxy far away, and focus on the women and stuff. Which is crazy, because why do you necessarily need a woman to do that, as if women haven't been the lead of Star Wars throughout the series. We don't feel that Star Wars is particularly sexist. You had the big focus on Rey before in the last films, so I don't think it's particularly more special because you're breaking the glass ceiling here. So I want to play this video from CNN of them talking about it, and then I want to play a video from the actual director here, from not dealing with Star Wars, but she was on a panel talking about the patriarchy and all those fun buzzwords that we like to hear and poke fun at. So here's the segment on CNN talking about it.
And the first person of color to direct a Star Wars film. It's set to be released in 2026. You can say that the force is strong with this one. Here's Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy.
I'm very thrilled about the project because I think what we are about to create is something very special. And we're in 2024 now. And I think it's about time that we had a woman come forward to shape the story in a galaxy far, far away.
Okay. Not necessary. It's really not necessary. It doesn't matter one way or another. That she's worked on Miss Marvel, which I don't think would make people particularly happy one way or another. But look at this video from some time ago, with them talking about men.
Of activating a force for change, but also trying to permeate that patriarchy, that power structure. And is that a part of the calculation of your art as well? And what's been the reaction to that?
Oh, absolutely. I like to make men uncomfortable. I enjoy making men uncomfortable. Not you, just not you. Not you.
Point taken, point taken.
But, it is important to be able to look into the eyes of a man and say, I am here, and recognize that. And recognize that I am working to bring something that makes you uncomfortable, and it should make you uncomfortable because you need to change your attitude. And it's only when you're uncomfortable, when you're shifty, when you have to have difficult conversations that you will perhaps look at yourself in the mirror and not like the reflection, and then say, maybe there is something wrong with the way I think, or maybe there is something wrong with the way I am addressing this issue.
Now, do you want to watch Star Wars to be lectured and have the dudes feel uncomfortable, or do you just want to see like some lightsaber duels and some blasters, some cute space creatures from time to time that you may collect, as a little collectible, cool scenery. Well, we were watching Star Wars episode 2. My two older sisters were looking at Padme's outfits. Was it or maybe it was the first? Yeah, I think it was the second one. Like she was in Naboo and other places, and my dad's just like, that's what all this stuff all going around. You guys are looking at their outfits. Yeah, there's a lot of different things we look at and enjoy visually. I don't watch Star Wars to be like, oh, those men are trash, or I hope those men feel certain things. Like, I think I've always liked Star Wars. Not so much anymore, but growing up, I liked Star Wars. I liked Star Wars, I think probably more than anyone in my house, my family. I liked the original ones. I did like the prequels, not all like more than others, some less than others. Like when Revenge of the Sith came out. Oh my gosh, I love that film. I was like obsessed with it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I've probably quoted that and watched those scenes more than anything, particularly the I have failed you, Anakin. I have failed you. And I'm not gonna quote the whole thing, but it just seems when Obi-Wan was like, Anakin, Chancellor Palpatine is evil, he just seems so frustrated. Like, bro, like, why are you an idiot? I've always loved Star Wars, and I think they've always had interesting characters, interesting worlds, etc. And I've never felt like it was anti-woman or anything like that. So it's good when you have a character that just kind of flows into the space, but sometimes these new people coming onto projects with an agenda, you can feel, well, I guess the agenda just kind of dripping through the pages, and the need to girl boss everything. And then you get someone who's not really well fleshed out, who's kind of all over the place, but they fill the quota of being like the magical kind of space girl. So, what's most important is there is a good story. But the thing about that interview is they asked, like, well, how does this bleed into your work? Now, I'm a very political person, as you can all tell. I get on here, like, 5 times a week, and we talk about politics. And you know that I also like to write. So I don't want to automatically just assume because someone is political that they can't write other things. Like, if I got the chance, I don't know how much I'd like to write. So I guess why would you turn it down if someone wanted to write for like a big project or something, with something that you're associated with, something that maybe you really love? But I would hate for someone to be like, oh, she's a conservative, I don't think she's gonna write this very well. Like, I wouldn't like to kind of bring that sort of bias over. And I've had this conversation talking about gosh, the guy, he was gonna write some Star Wars, but Ta-Nehisi Coates, not Star Wars, Superman, but wasn't he gonna do some? I don't remember, but Ta-Nehisi Coates, there was talk of him doing some projects, and I'm like, and I made the same case, like, I don't want to necessarily just believe that he's going to do a bad job because of his politics, but we've seen his politics really bleed into like Captain America comic books, for an example. So but the question was like, how does your stuff kind of work in your art? And so she said, she wants to make men uncomfortable. She likes making men feel uncomfortable. And at Disney, that kind of stuff is celebrated. Like, if you look at some of the shows with Disney Plus, like the She-Hulk show, that was something where, which I've seen clips and read synopses and other stuff like that. I didn't sit down and actually watch it myself, so just disclaimer there. But the writers were like excited to know that people would be triggered by the show. Like, that was a plan. Like, why wouldn't your plan be like, let's make really good content that people will love? Not everyone will like it. That's just the nature of art. Some people are going to love it. You could create something that's universally loved, but there's still going to be someone out there who's like, I didn't really like it. I didn't like the aesthetics of it. I thought the acting could have been this, or the lighting could have been this, or the creative choices could have been that, or whatever. So not everyone is going to love what you create, but they were crafting a television show like giddy at the hatred that it would create. And to me, that was so weird, because don't you want people to buy the product, to watch the product, to pay for the product? And the kind of people that you probably hate are the people who've made Marvel what it is, who have, I don't know, grew up in families that made Disney what it is, or have kids who make Disney what it is. But you just kind of seems like you hate your audience. And I feel that all the time. And they get these activists to write this stuff who have a skewed sense of the world, skewed sense of men, and all this stuff. And I don't see how it's not going to bleed into their writing. And they're so sort of desperate to keep breaking those glass ceilings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That, I don't know, you'll just kind of keep feeling it. So last night I went to go see Aquaman, which actually wasn't that bad. I guess I'll talk about it a little bit. I actually liked it better than the first one. So my older sister had called me when I was my oldest sister had called me when I was in the movie theater. So I called her back. And so she was on not speaker, but the Bluetooth coming out the car. And so my sister Katrina was right next to me. And so we talked a little bit about the film because she hadn't seen it. She wasn't, I guess, maybe planning on seeing it. And so my sister asked, like, did you see the Marvel What If show? And Katrina was like, oh, I haven't seen it yet. But Christina hasn't seen any of that stuff. She's boycott Marvel. And she's just like, or like, why? And I'm just, I don't know why I have to keep explaining this. I've said it plenty of times. Like, because Disney is an evil corporation who I went to a rant particularly about, because they take your money and they use that money specifically to make different products that are supposed to indoctrinate your children. And which one of the things I'm thinking about specifically the thing that ticked me off the most was just kind of like, let me just kind of end this relationship, was their opposition to the parental rights and education bill. And they're like, well, we're going to work to get this repealed or whatever. I'm like, you're going to take the money that these families give you to fund organizations that want to repeal a law that says that you can't talk about sexual identity and gender identity, sexual orientation and gender identity in the schools, and like lower grades. At the time it was like K-3, and in older grades if it's in an inappropriate manner. Or you can't like hide information from parents regarding the healthcare of your kids related to, I guess, these particular issues. So if a kid maybe has identity issues, you can't be like, oh, this is my experiment, we're going to keep this a secret between you and me. And there are different cases within Florida and all across the country, but even in Florida, where something like that became necessary. So Disney getting involved and saying that they wanted to do something about that, I was like, you know what, Eric July says you shouldn't give more than 50% of the money of your money to people who hate you, and I thought that was a really good philosophy. So then there was other things, and I've mentioned this quite a bit before, that kept happening within the content of Marvel and so on. That I'm like, I genuinely feel like they resent their customers, like they hate me, they hate my values, they hate my family. they resent the fact that people like me made their company money and stuff, and they just, in the words of Chris Evans, they can't wait till we die off like dinosaurs. Because I guess they expect that they'll indoctrinate the kids and create a whole new world. So I was like, yeah, I'm boycotting them, or I am, I haven't watched anything since WandaVision. That was the last time I watched anything Disney related. I haven't watched Encanto. I haven't watched their live action stuff. I haven't watched I didn't even watch Spider-Man stuff. So I'm not saying I haven't seen clips on the internet or something like that, but I haven't seen it. So this is another instance where, again, they get an activist who has these feelings toward the patriarchy and men and etc. Revisiting the story of Rey, which, some people liked it. I don't think objectively it was very good. I don't think you can have reintroduced Palpatine in a slow moving screen at the beginning of a movie and it's gonna be a banger. I don't think that's how you reintroduce your villain of the series that's supposed to be dead. So lots of different issues that you probably should have just kind of left alone, but they're gonna I guess revisit this again. And I don't know how much of a feminist sort of take it'll be, but Star Wars has always had strong female leads, and the direction of how a lot of the stuff has gone thus as of recent, I don't know how much worse it can get to fulfill the agenda. So fair warning to all those of you still giving them a chance, who still like the stuff. I imagine you probably won't. I imagine you probably won't in the future. Anyway, let's move on. I want to talk about the illegal immigration issue, which is pretty darn bad. So in CBS reported, I mentioned this yesterday, that they had 300,000 crossings in December, just December. So I mentioned also yesterday that that's about half the population of the city of Detroit. And if you're not from, I don't know where in the world you might be that you don't know Detroit is a major city in Michigan, but it's pretty bad. That's a lot of people coming over that we don't know enough information about them. One, they're breaking the laws to get in here. Many of these people don't have dates with the courts or check-ins with ICE until years into the future. We talked a few weeks ago about someone who didn't have a case hearing until 7 years in the future, and that I guess that's the backup has been something like Mayorkas mentioned was how broken the system is, and he's obviously aiding in the brokenness of it. But he mentioned that there's been backlogs, and there's been backlogs for a while, and it's getting worse, and it's getting worse, and it's getting worse, and people settle in, and then eventually there's going to be a case for, hey, we need to let all these people stay. We don't know how many people coming over, what kind of records they have. We don't know people coming over, how many terrorists might have gotten loose into the country. They've stopped a number of terrorists at the border, so who knows how many people are coming in. There are traffickers who are bringing over kids, and all sorts of terrible things happen to them during this process. So we have a huge trafficking problem that they just kind of don't seem to care about going on here. And most of of these people coming over, so there's so many people who are men who are coming over to, I understand, take advantage of our economic opportunities and want to be in America, who wouldn't want to be. But the whole world is basically open at the southern border. The whole world is basically open. So Thomas Massie has proposed something that's pretty interesting that I think is pretty necessary. So he and another Republican has proposed that we should change our Constitution. And as of right now, the population for our representation and stuff is based upon just the population. So they want to change the Constitution so it instead focuses on counting citizens. Now, you're probably like, what? That's not something we do. So Warren Davidson, he said, well, he at first said this. Let me just share my screen for a second, because Massie had retweeted him. So then I'll go to Massie's. So congressional districts should be drawn based on the population of U.S. citizens only. The census should specifically count U.S. citizens for apportionment of representation. Only U.S. citizens are represented by the U.S. Congress. California has 5 to 7 extra members of Congress because censuses use total population. I have legislation that would end that practice. So Massie did post it. He said, I have co-sponsored this proposed amendment to the Constitution. Currently, congressional districts are apportioned to states based on population of citizens and non-citizens, which gives states numerous illegal aliens an advantage in Congress and the Electoral College. So I don't know if you guys can see that. Make that a little bigger. To be able to, I can't read that on my little screen. I have to pull up my phone and read it to you. But the top part isn't really important, but the bottom part is really simple. And it just basically says what he says, that they'll change the Constitution to make it so that they'll just count the citizens. It's really, really simple. And it's so simple, you'd think that it would be easy to pass such a thing. So this is something that I hope Massie kind of drills into and follows. And I hope it makes waves. So I'll follow it, and hopefully he'll make waves about it, and hopefully it gets pushed a bit, because I want to know what are people's thoughts about this. And I would think it would be pretty messed up if people couldn't agree to this. So here's the relevant part. Representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by counting the number of persons in each state who are citizens of the United States. It's really, really simple. Really, really simple. There's no reason why something like that shouldn't pass like very easily and get bipartisan support. But I have a suspicion that something like that would not get bipartisan support, and that particular states wouldn't really want to be on board with that. So I think that's partially part of the reason why they should push it really hard, to see who will not agree to this. And I wonder how many Democrats would be like, "Nah, I'm not agreeing to that." I wonder how many of them would outright just be like, "Nah, we're good." I think it would be crazy if there were any Republicans that oppose this. I'm not saying that there wouldn't be, but they should unify and put that up for a vote to see where all the eggs are going to land in which baskets, and if the Democrats are going to say no, and also get a feel for how different states feel about it, because California, they I would have a lot of coming in. Michigan has been losing population, people have been moving out, so if they get a lot of folks who are coming in who are illegal immigrants, and they come and fill those numbers, and maybe we I don't know, maybe that's something they want, maybe that's something that some particular states might want to feel back up their representation. So and then there's different governors who want their states to basically be sanctuary states, or they push sanctuary cities, etc. So would they be like, "No, we cannot count you for representation"? I I just think it's important to know where everyone's gonna fall on this, and how they're gonna reason their way out of it. I think it's really important. But I don't think I have no sort of belief that it'll get very far as of now, but sometimes you again, you just got to see what people will say. In the meantime, you have these states like New York and Illinois, but particularly cities like Chicago and New York City, who are overrun with illegal immigrants, and they can't handle it's a burden to their systems. They're still so mad at Abbott. Abbott did one of the best political sort of stunts and policy things, probably not ever, but it was a really brilliant tactic. Him and other people did it too, like DeSantis, but particularly Abbott, sending people to these so-called sanctuary cities, and they're upset because it's burning their systems, and taxpayers are upset because they're using resources that they could use, but in some instances they see them getting benefits that they themselves, the citizens, may not get. And so all they can do is kind of beg for help and point the finger at Abbott and say, well, it's his fault, and then beg for money from Washington to say, well, we need money to fix the problem. But when they beg for money from the federal government, they're getting money from everywhere, basically, to be able to fix that issue, when they should be saying we need to do something about the border, period. We need to stop incentivizing people to come, and we need to really start pushing people out, deporting them as fast as possible. People waiting 7 years for a court date is insane, and it's not anything that we can sustain. And by that time, if you have people coming over here, again, they're here for 7 years, you can have anchor babies born and people establishing different sorts of roots here. And then people are going to say, well, they need some kind of amnesty. It'd be cruel to send them back now. So it's all a really crazy game that it seems that people don't really want to solve, or aren't fighting hard enough to solve. It's something that's great for Republicans to complain about. And I know, but what are we going to do? What are we actually going to do? What are we actually going to achieve? And I know that they don't have majority numbers, but this is an issue that's starting to really, really hurt Democrats, because Democrats are talking about it because they're fed up with this. So if you're running for office out there, anyone listening, like, this is an issue to really hammer on. and cross the aisle and go talk to some frustrated Democrats about this issue. In Michigan, there's a gang of illegal immigrants who are going and hitting houses and robbing some nice houses like in the Oakland County area. And Sheriff Bouchard, maybe it was a month or so ago, had a press conference about it, and they were talking about how they use special equipment to like jam the Wi-Fi signals of the security cameras. So if you have like a Ring doorbell or something like that, there's some kind of device that they use to stop that. So I don't know if people want to go back to using like wired security systems as opposed to like doing the whole wireless setup. I mean, I guess people could find a way to get around it, stuff that they really want to get around stuff. But I think nowadays people use a lot of wireless stuff that are really popular, like Ring or something. So, but they take that stuff out so you can go ahead and track them. So this stuff is beyond just the border towns. The stuff is beyond the sanctuary cities. The stuff is right in your backyard. Right in your backyard. that is like right in my backyard. So it's a huge issue. And it's going to hurt the Democrats on the ballot if Republicans can at least lay out some kind of competence to fix the issue. If you're not going to lay out some kind of competence to fix the issue, people are going to go with the devil they know. That's just how people are. Unless they're like really ticked off. And they are ticked off, but I don't know. I don't know if their frustration is enough anger to go with someone they hate. And you better find a way to make them trust you at least a little bit to fix the issue. Anyway, last thing I want to mention, I did mention I saw Aquaman, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about it a little bit for anyone who's interested. So I thought I agreed to go see it with my family, and they paid my ticket and stuff. It was like $5. And then after immediately I said yes, I kind of regretted it. And I was like, oh my God, I just expect you to kind of be a dumpster fire. And I'm seeing people who thought, I guess it was a dumpster fire, but I thought it was okay. Myself, it was way better than I thought it would be. And I actually enjoyed it, I think, more than the first one, because the first movie was just like overwhelming with how many things were kind of like happening. And the story was just kind of like, the movie's this, the movie's that. It's a love story. It's action adventure. It's fish out of water. It's, there was just so many things kind of happening. There was a horror scene in it with the trench, and like that the Annabelle doll made an appearance. And if you look real hard in the ocean, like it just seemed like it was a lot. And I didn't understand making as much money as it did, but it apparently did very, very well overseas and stuff. So and then the young actor who played like Aquaman as a youth was some of the worst acting I've ever seen in a feature film. And God bless William Dafoe, who just stood there talking to the kid as if he wasn't the worst actor with this like cross-eyed contacts going on. So there were things that I didn't love about the film or whatever. So and I'm kind of an Orem apologist, his brother. I'm kind of an Orem apologist. So anyway, he was a bad guy, don't get me wrong. But there was stuff about I don't think I like Aquaman too much. I don't think I really care for Arthur. I don't maybe dislike him, but he's not a character I'm too terribly fond of, I suppose. Or particularly maybe Jason's kind of rendition of him, I guess, because I don't think I've ever kind of disliked Aquaman. I don't know. He's not like a top tier sort of character for me, but I just don't. I'm not a huge fan. So I figured I would kind of maybe like Orem more than Aquaman going into it. So I would say overall had good action sequences. There was a lot of different locations, a lot of different very interesting creatures, which I would think is something that you want to see. Different interesting settings in the ocean, on land. There was like a desert. They went to like the desert initially to break out Orem, and they had like these sandworm creature things going on. There was they went to this volcano island place, and the vegetation had just kind of come to life, and so a lot of visually interesting things going on. I thought the CGI was okay. There were moments when you're like, that's definitely a cutscene, but it wasn't. It was better. It was better than the Flash. The film was better than the Flash, I thought. Amber Heard was not. She was in it more than I thought she was, because she was really crying on the stand about how much they took her out. But she was in it. The movie wasn't about her, so she wasn't in it a lot. But she was in it quite a bit. People saying that she's only going to be in there for 5 minutes or whatever. That's not true. I thought that the final fight scene with the big bad of the film, that it was ultimately like there's a lot of action leading up to it, and fights, different trident fights, leading up to it, and other stuff like that. But the actual like big bad, it was kind of anticlimactic how he was defeated. So that was probably like, I don't know, maybe the worst thing I thought of the film. But it was a kind of a, I don't know, fun might be an exaggeration to how I felt, but I think other people might describe it that way. So I thought it was okay. I thought it was all right. I definitely better than some of the stuff that they've put out. I'd watched Flash when it came out on HBO Max, and I thought this was better. And again, I thought it was better than probably the first one. Amber Heard's wig still didn't look good. I was rolling my eyes at Nicole Kidman's character, because I just feel like a lot of issues she caused between the family. And she said something about her younger son. She's like, tell him I think about him every day. And I guess I was making all kinds of faces, and my sisters were laughing at me. And they did show something in the film that they didn't really address before, I don't think. I don't remember if there was like a council that was in the first film, but they don't like surface dwellers, and so they had a bit of prejudice toward, not a bit of prejudice, but they kind of wanted to also take out the surface world. And so when you're like, okay, they felt that way, and Orm was the king and he felt that way, they were like kind of on one accord about that. So Orm, he did some shady stuff to get to that goal of trying to wage war, but he he just seemed like a much better king than Aquaman. Like different mentalities that he had for the sake of the kingdom just were, I guess, more on par for being a leader than Aquaman, who clearly hated his job the whole entire movie. And he would spend like literally half his time there. And I don't mean like half of his time is like saving the world with Justice League stuff. And, he's doing stuff, whatever, but he like lives like with his dad, taking care of his baby with Mira. And I'm like, why isn't the crown prince being guarded by Atlanteans or something? So there was a line in the film, they're like, he's spending half of his time away, and I'm like, they got a point. As they were criticizing him. My sister said he kind of is like the older sibling who is kind of a bum, who won't really get a job or hold it down or something, and is a massive screw up, but for some reason the parents just really love him. and they give the younger sibling kind of, a lot of slack or something, or not slack, but a lot of complain or on their case, as opposed to like the older, cooler sibling or whatever. So that was kind of the dynamic or whatever. So I thought his banter, the banter between the brothers was fine, but again, I'm just not crazy about Momoa's characterization of Aquaman, I guess. And I don't know if it's just like, I think it's maybe just kind of how Jason plays him. And he definitely there's people going around talking about how he was fat and stuff. He's definitely solid. and not as like muscle defined in his muscles or whatever. But he doesn't really like to do that. They like put the muscles on his like Aquaman suit. Other than that, he was like wearing house coats and, you know, baggy clothes and stuff. So I guess that's about all I have to say about it. It was okay. If you want to go watch it, I would think the average person might and maybe like it more than I did, or I don't know. It was okay. I can't. Fun is probably, that's a word that critics like to use a lot. Perhaps again, someone else might say fun. You have to do a lot in a film for me to be like, that was fun. So I can't say that this was that film. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost a streaming on my website, all the stuff, so you guys can support. I appreciate it. Check out different merch that's available at the store, like the "I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For" shirt. We did talk about Star Wars today, so that's kind of like, I'm not the, you know, these are not the droids you're looking for kind of inspiration there. So you guys can check out other merch at the store. Check out different art. I think I already said different articles and whatnot. There's I did write one about Calendar Gate. We talked about a bit about it. I think there's a big kind of cultural moment that's hidden between the lines of what's going on. So I recommend just going and checking out that particular article that I wrote. Anyway, I'll see you guys tomorrow, and God bless.